Hello aspirants. Today I'm going to take a video that will be very much beneficial for the UPSC mains aspirants. And as you already know that we are approaching towards the mains papers that is going to happen in January. So these videos that we are going to upload will be a 30-hour video. It will be extending to those people who are going to appear for the mains examination. Even the people who are going to appear for the UPSC as a whole can watch this video. What we are going to try to entail through these videos is that how you are going to write answer when you are going to write it when the during your answer writing session. So the questions which we are going to put will be very simple questions, but the format of the answers, how you are going to present a particular fact and where you are going to protect it, to where you are going to present it, those are the things that we are going to tell you in these videos. So throughout the videos we will cover almost GS 1 2 3 4, whereas also we will try to cover the essay paper. And when these questions when you see the video, you will get an type of understanding that when you are going to appear in the mains paper, when you are seeing the question paper by yourself, the first question when it comes to your mind, you will definitely have some inputs in your mind and you will be very much enthusiastic to write it in a certain way. To keep that coolness, to keep that calmness in a certain way, we are going to let you know that how those facts that you know could be uh, written in a type of format that will get fetch you more and more marks. So you are going to score better if you watch this particular video and know how you are going to write the answer, irrespective of the fact that what kind of question you are going to get in mains examination, because you do know that it is a mind game for UPSC mains, because many of the aspirants do have very consistent knowledge, very good knowledge, even though even then they are unable to qualify the mains examination, because it is not that they do not know the answer to the questions, but they must would have a less presentation format of their answers. That is why they get little bit less score. That is why they are unable to clear the mains exam. So I will try to explain all those aspects of the mains answer writing, and I will close all these videos with a very positive note for you all aspirants. So I will be starting with the GS1 that is the subjects which comprise GS1 is Indian history, art and culture, society, India and world geography, and world history, as you already will be knowing that. So you would be knowing that this is around of 250 marks, and the Indian history part which you see, for the last couple of time what has happened is the questions in mains of UPSC from Indian history has been quite opinion based. They want to test your knowledge, whereas also want your opinion that what about the things that has happened in the past, whereas what do you think that what were the circumstances then, and what were the events that occurred, what were the tragedies places. So they want little bit of everything, and they want to cook up a particular answer so that they could test your knowledge. So those are the type of questions that are being asked from Indian history. Whereas art and culture or art and architecture, you would be very much familiar that the art and culture questions basically they involve even languages or folk dances, or even the temple architecture and paintings, and these are the most prime core part of the art and architecture. But even the folk dances, the languages, or even they ask accounts of travelers. Say for example, say for instance, the Alberini's anecdotes were asked in the past paper of the mains examination. So what I would recommend to you is, whenever you're going to prepare for the art and culture or the GS1 paper, the one thing which you will note, the note from the questions of the mains, that they want to test your knowledge, whereas also they want you to have a broader perspective. That is how you are going to write the answer. because when you are writing an answer to the question, there are different perspective to a question. That is why the scores which you get lessen up. So we will have to be very much confident about the questions, and we will present as much as we can to a particular question. Don't feel that we are going to score full marks, because you are not going to do so, because there will be different perspective, and within 250 words or 200 words you are not going to express each and everything. All right, so we will be trying to address those questions, address these concerns of the mains examination, and we will try to follow up the video from there on. Whereas also I told you that society is a very important chapter. So I will be discussing one question from society in this video, and the in the other video I will be discussing one question from society. So there are total 5 questions that I will be discussing, and I will be letting you know how to express or present your answers in the mains exam. So this is so this is the overall portion that I'm going to discuss in the video. And as always, I'm Ritesh Shukla. This is Disa Publications 120 plus means 120 plus mains discussion. So you would be if you have already prepared for your UPSC and you are going to appear for the mains, I really believe that you would have heard about Renaissance. Okay, so I believe that many of you would be confusing this with the European Renaissance, and if you do not have the exact understanding of what Renaissance was and whether Renaissance happened in India or not, this particular question will be becoming really very tough for you. But I am of the opinion that you would definitely be knowing about the Indian Renaissance, but you would not be knowing that there is a Indian Renaissance that has happened in India. The Indian Renaissance is the same thing which you study regarding Ram Mohan Roy or Keshav Chandra Sen. So these were the some of the people who were actually very much important when the society's evils were to be eradicated from society, and these were some of the people who started kind of organization and institutions. These institutions, what they did was they used to eradicate all the evils of the society, and they used to come up with the all the good facts that has been presented in Vedas or other aspects of other religions. So these were the some of the things that were brought by Ram Mohan Roy or Keshav Chandra Sen in their the type of societies that they established. Whereas you would be very much familiar about the Ram Mohan Roy, that he very much helped or was very enthusiastic in downgrading the sati system, which was a very evil practice, which were practiced in the West Bengal at that particular time. So as I already told you, that if you even do not know what Indian Renaissance is, you would be knowing about Raja Ram Mohan Roy or Keshav Chandra Sen or Abhinavanath Tagore. These are some of the people who were responsible for bringing good in the society, and these good things that happened are actually these good things that happened were because of the political because of the social thought that these gentlemen had. And when you are going to present the answer for the Indian Renaissance, you will definitely come to a conclusion that throughout the Indian history, if we exclude the political part, there are many aspects like Bhakti movement and Reformation movement, or even the time when Raja Ram Mohan Roy was trying to eradicate, trying to remove these kind of evil practices. So all these things you would have studied. If you do not recall it with Indian Renaissance, that will be definitely fine. If you do know what was the European Renaissance, you can explain that. First of all, you can explain what the European Renaissance was, who were the people involved in it, because this is a very broader question. It does not entails many things, but only a small thing, that is Indian Renaissance in reality was not a Renaissance. This is the overall question, whereas it has been written that you need to critically examine this particular statement. Now we will try to understand what is the demand of question. You'll have to know what Indian Renaissance is. As I already told you, if you do not know all the facts about Radha Mohan Roy or Rabindranath Tagore or Keshav Chandra Sen, and you do not recall it with the Indian Renaissance, it's fine. But you will need to know that there was European Renaissance, and when European Renaissance happened, there were certain personalities involved, and there were certain thoughts that were called as Renaissance period. So if you know that, you will definitely will be able to recall these people when you are writing the answer. Okay, now what you have to do is perspectives. You'll have to put perspectives regarding the Renaissance, both the European and Indian Renaissance. Then only you will be able to examine the fact that how Indian Renaissance was different from Renaissance. Okay. Now, as I already told you, respective personalities must be involved, and Western Renaissance, little understanding of the Western Renaissance will definitely help you in this answer. So what I have written is first of all, I would say that whenever you are going to write the answer, it must be in three parts. The first is introduction, the second is body, and the third part is conclusion. You must not exclude the conclusion in any of the answers, except if you are asked about short notes. If you have been asked about short notes and the question does not carry more than 5 marks, I wouldn't recommend to give you a conclusion to that. But if the short notes also carry more than 5 marks, or it is of 8 or 7 or 10 marks, I would recommend that you can give a short conclusion there. This particular question can be of 10 marks, can be of 15 marks. If it is of 15 marks, definitely you are going to write it within 250 words. That could be the limit. Whereas if it is of 10 marks, it could be below 200 words. I would recommend that always respect the word limit, and if you are able to do it within the 250 marks, that will be very much fine. Okay, so let me start with the answer that I have put here. This is the perfect answer, a kind of perfect answer, I would say. If this question is of 15 marks, you're going to get at least around 12 to 13 marks in this the answer format that I have made. I would also explain you why you will be getting around 12 to 13. But one thing which I would like to explain to you is because the question entails that it is about critically examining, uh, which means that you'll have to examine the question. Also, you'll have to critically analyze that how the Indian Renaissance was completely different than the exact Renaissance that happened in Europe. So that is why this answer will be in a the format which will be explaining more about Indian Renaissance, how it was different than a European Renaissance. There are also similarities between Indian Renaissance and Western Renaissance, and those are also the some kind of perspective, and you can expect even that question also. So yeah, if you are you already have prepared, or if you are preparing for UPSC examination, definitely you do have these certain different perspectives in your mind. Now let me start with it. As I already told you, the three part must already be always be available for any question. Those are about introduction, the second is body, and the third is conclusion. Conclusion must be included in each question that you are going to attend. Now about introduction, first you'll be putting about introduction, and the introduction here I have written that Indian Renaissance differed itself from the European Renaissance for its own limitations. Now, this particular statement is talking about limitations. From this particular sentence itself, you will be able to understand that Indian Renaissance was more of eradicating or removing the evils that has existed in our society for very long, whereas the European Renaissance was more about liberty, about liberalism, about freedom, and those were the thought process that evolved during the European Renaissance. That is why the statement states that Indian Renaissance differed itself from the European Renaissance for its own limitations. There were certain limitations in Indian Renaissance, and those were because of the societal structure. The even the popular people who were trying to improve things in society had certain kind of limitations in themselves. Now, the question which has to be answered in this for this question, and this must be the question that has to be taken up: how the Renaissance differed in India. Now, first we will be explaining about European Renaissance, what were involved in it, and thereafter we'll be explaining about the Indian Renaissance. Now, the European Renaissance scope was wide and extensive, affecting changes in all, including architecture. As I already told you, there were thought process, there were newer things that were evolving during the uh, European Renaissance, architecture, music, and literature and philosophy, whereas Indian Renaissance dealt more with social reformism. As I already told you, there were certain limitations because of the societal structure that we had. As such, its scope was very much limited. From the introduction itself, we come to a conclusion that Indian Renaissance was separate or different than the Western things, because Western Renaissance completely were based on liberalism, liberty, and all those thought process which were liberating a particular person's mind. Now, who were the personalities who were involved in European Renaissance? Those were Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, he was a painter, an Italian painter. Machiavelli, a very renowned political enthusiast. Thomas More, again a very renowned political enthusiast. Galileo was a scientist, whereas also he was known for many things that he did at his time. Kepler, Martin Luther, he was a social reformist, whereas he went against the church itself. Erasmus was also a social reformer, and he also went against the church and thought process that were involved during the church. So these were the famous personalities because of whom Renaissance, those time period is called as Renaissance. So what we are going to present here is Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, Machiavelli, Thomas More, Galileo, Kepler, Martin Luther, Erasmus were some of the famous personalities because of whom the whole period from 14th century to 17th century came to be known as Renaissance and reformations in Europe. So because of these people, because of the thought process that they expelled, what the thought process that they told to the society, because of those thought process, because of those liberal thoughts, those time period was called as European Renaissance by historians. Now, European Renaissance was progressive in nature and promoted the cause of nation states, whereas Indian Renaissance was more retrogressive, causing divisionist tendencies as it identified with religion and community. So the most primary part of the European Renaissance was the most fundamental thing was that church used to be very much hegemonistic in nature at that time period. So whoever the reformists were, they were against whoever the reformists were in Europe, those were against the policies of the church or the thought process of the church. So these reformists, what they did was they explained how a particular person can relate to God, whereas church only role could be to show the way that how you are going to get connected with the God, or whatever the things that you need to do to get connected to the God. So reformists were actually going against the church, and this were happening in a particular community that was Christianity. Okay, so whereas in India, what happened? There were several religions. There were numerous number of religions. Other than religion, there were also some sects which were quite different than the original religion, that was Hinduism. So what happened was the changes that were brought in the society that were particularly in Hinduism, the evil practices that existed in Hinduism, those were being removed, but the evil practices that were in other religions, they were not removed because there were no ideologists who came up against the fundamental or orthodox thing that were in their particular religion. So that is why the Indian Renaissance was more retrogressive, causing divisions tendencies, because Hinduism, there were many factions in Hinduism who were against the reforms, there were many factions who were in support of the reforms. So these type of support and pros and cons of the people were actually acting as divisionist tendency in the society at that particular time. Now, as a matter of fact, Indian Renaissance identified Indian culture with Hinduism, creating a sense of alienation amongst other religions. Now, as I already told you that Hinduism, people from Hindus people from Hinduism were only very much active regarding the evil practices that were followed, and it was widespread. That is why those people went against the evil practices, whereas the people from other religion, from other sects, even though they knew about the evil practices of their religion, they never spoke against them, and that is why a kind of a rift started in between the Hinduism and other religions. Now, some Indians were open to Western ideas. What you have to do in this particular part is you'll have to explain that who was the kind of reformist who could be related more to the Indian Renaissance. So no other than Raja Ram Mohan Roy could be explained here. Raja Ram Mohan Roy was a Bengali Brahmin held as one of the founders of modern India, undertook serious study of Western theology and attempted to synthesize Christianity and European theism with various strands of Hindu monotheism. So, even though if you do not include the Hindu monotheism or Christianity or the religion part, you'll have to just explain how Ram Mohan Roy was the pioneer of eradicating social evils that were existing at that time period. Now the second statement, through it, through it, he propounded views that were critical of idol worship, Brahmanism, and some Indian customs such as sati, and stressed the importance of learning about European scientific and mathematical discoveries. So Raja Ram Mohan Roy proponed, he was actually supporting the European scientific and mathematical discoveries, and he also took many notes from the European Renaissance. So you could connect Raja Ram Mohan Roy from the Western Renaissance, and you could explain that how he actually took many parts from the Western Renaissance and he explained it to the Indian society as well. Now let's move on. Now, about the thinkers of European Renaissance were secular and universal, whereas Indian Renaissance failed to evolve a secular platform. Well, this is the kind of thought that could be expressed by an historian, but Indian Renaissance failed to evolve a secular platform. As I already told you, that Hinduism was the center point, and all those ideologues who were finding difficulties in Hinduism or the social practices that evolved at that particular time, those were confronted, and those evil practices were actually wanted by the ideologists to be abolished. So that is why this platform was not a secular one, but it was happening in Hinduism itself, whereas other religions were completely bereft of the changes that were made in the Hinduism. Now, from the Indian perspective, how you can explain that how we allowed other people to get involved in with us, whereas also we were against the process that you can evict us from our land itself. Now, as I have put here a quotation by Mahatma Gandhi, I would state that whenever you are writing the mains answer, please refrain from writing those quotations which you do not know exactly. Say, for example, if Mahatma Gandhi has said, I do not want my house to be walled in on all sides and my windows to be stuffed, I want the cultures of all lands to be blown about my house as freely as possible, but I refuse to be blown off my feet. If you do not know the whole quotation, I would recommend that you don't have to write it, because if you write the quotation wrong, definitely you are going to lose marks there. So I would recommend write short quotations and write only those quotations which you remember that a certain person has said, and that has to be in alignment with the answer that you are putting out. Now, why I have put this particular point here, because the question is about critically examining, whereas Mahatma Gandhi has supported here that I want everyone to be involved in within our country, but I do not want to be blown off my feet. I do not want to be evicted from my particular nation. And many popular leader Rabindranath, Sarat Chandra Jain, or even Nazrul were of the same opinion. This particular fact states that we had a liberal thought process. We had a kind of thought process that was evolving in a very long time period, but also it was limited within a societal structure. So we were not very much free about the societal structure, but we also exercised the Renaissance in a type of format which is completely different than the Western European Renaissance, because Western European Renaissance was completely based on liberalism, free ideas, free thoughts, nationalism. So these were the big things that happened during the European Renaissance. In the later periods, you see that other aspects of European Renaissance were established in the 17th, 18th century. Now, we will be concluding this question, and the question would be: does the limitations make us feel that Indian Renaissance in reality was not Renaissance? However, Indian Renaissance is a positive role to play. The great ideas of progressivism, reformism could reach the people with Renaissance thought. Similarly, Renaissance movements like Arya Samaj, thinkers like Vivekanand influenced great cultural consciousness, benefiting the cause of cultural nationalism. Finally, the Renaissance spirit continued to inspire reformist movement in the past and the present. So at the conclusion point, because this is a history question, what I have included is that a kind of a personality, Vivekanand, also influenced many ideas and brought about changes in the spiritual aspect of the Hinduism. So I have included Vivekanand in the conclusion part because Renaissance was very wide in India. Even though only historians could point out that a certain kind of practices, when the certain kind of practices were being abolished or were being evicted or were being fought against, only those leaders were called to be part of Renaissance. But there were wider reach of each and every person even during that particular time, and when a certain personality was actually speaking in favor of the spirituality, in favor of the bhakti cult, or in favor of other aspects that were going to improve the society, those were also included in the Renaissance of India. So that is why I have included Vivekanand here. Vivekanand also influenced a great cultural consciousness. We all know about the speech that he made. So this is the overall answer for this particular question, that is how Indian Renaissance was completely different from the Western Renaissance, and it was to be critically examined. So first thing what I did was I explained about European Renaissance. Thereafter, simultaneously I told about the Indian Renaissance, how it was different from the European Renaissance. In between, also I explained how a particular personality, that is Raja Ram Mohan Roy, was taking many points from European Renaissance and putting it out in the Indian society. So these were the things that were done in the Indian Renaissance part, and this is the exact answer that has to be put out when you are, if you are appearing for the your mains examination. So if you want to take out some short notes from here, you can do so. So I will be moving on to the next question. Okay. Now, the second question is: the cabinet mission plan was the last genuine attempt to preserve the unity and integrity of India. Do you agree? So, as I already told you, many questions, the questions which you see of Indian history, even those questions could be of opinion type. So, this is that particular question where a question is asked: do you agree? And then substantiate has been given. So, if this question is of 15 marks, if this question is of 15 marks, definitely it will be answered within, of course, the word limit will be decided by the UPSC, but as per my expertise, as I already I have attended the mains examination, and when I was attending, I saw that any 15 marks questions were asked within the limit of 250 words. So I wouldn't say that it will be extending 250. Now you can read the question again and again, and you will get to one point. That question is about cabinet mission plan, and how exactly was it the genuine attempt to preserve the unity, and why a unity is being asked here, why unity and integrity is being asked regarding India, because this cabinet mission plan happened in 1946, and this was just before 1947 when partition happened in between India and Pakistan. So the land was divided. So the question entails that cabinet mission plan was the last genuine attempt of addressing the unity and integrity of India, so that the India do not get divided and two separate countries do not get made. So what we will have to will we be doing in the answer will be explaining about the cabinet mission plan, what were there in cabinet mission plan, therefore also substantiating how the cabinet mission plan was actually trying to unite the country rather than dividing it. Okay, so let's start with the answer here. The first thing, the demand of the questions is about cabinet mission plan, as I already told you. Perspectives regarding the cabinet mission plan, features of the cabinet mission plan, and from the introduction we will start we will start the answer, and that is the cabinet mission plan was constituted to decide modalities of transfer of power, consisting of Sir A.V. Alexander, its chairman, with other members Patrick Lawrence and Sir Stafford Cripps. So I told you that we will have to explain little bit about cabinet mission plan. You don't have to go more than two lines for the cabinet mission plan. You have already explained that who were the members who were part of cabinet mission plan, and thereafter you move on from there, because it is a plan, and the features of the plan will be explained in the later part. Now, what was the purpose of the mission? The purpose was to resolve political deadlock between Indian National Congress and All India Muslim League at their stance to prevent a communal dispute whether British India would be better off unified or divided. So, from this purpose of the mission itself, you get a kind of hint that cabinet mission plan was actually about keeping India united, whereas it was also trying to diffuse the tension between All India Muslim League and Indian National Congress. Now let's know about the recommendations that were made by cabinet mission plan. A union of India with British India and princely states. Now during the 1946, as Britain was coming out of the repercussions that happened, that occurred because of the World War II, the Britain was trying to give independence to India, and it was trying to just leave off the post very soon. So what it did, what the plan suggested was a union of India with British India and princely state. It was trying to let off the Indian post very soon. Now, the second part was a center with limited powers confined to defense, currency, and communications. See, overall governance was to be transferred to the Indian Union. Provinces with relatively more powers. There were small provinces that were already made during the Government of India Act, or even before that act. And when the governance was established, the Britishers established small provinces, and those provinces were given relatively more power in the cabinet mission plan. Now, about the provinces of India to be grouped under three categories: A, B, and C. Later on in Government of India Act 1935, you do see that there were also kind of categories that were created. And later on, when we established our constitution, we also created four different types of categories, which included British India, states, provinces, and other union territories. So these were the kind of categories that were also later on done in India itself after establishment of constitution. A constituent assembly consisting of members elected by provincial legislative assemblies and nominated by princely states. So there were many small provinces who were ruled by kings and princes, and these princes were given independent dominion, given that they could give taxes to the Britishers. These were the plan that were adopted by the Britishers before Government of India Act 1935. This was the plan that was executed by them. Now, what happened through this particular plan was a constituent assembly consisting of members elected by the provincial legislative assemblies and nominated by the princely states were to be formed. A constituent assembly idea was given a thought here. Now, the last part was it outrightly rejected idea of Pakistan, as creation of Pakistan leads to tremendous dislocation of resources. So this was the very important point in the cabinet mission plan itself, which would explain the whole matter which our question wants. Okay. Now, it was undoubtedly a genuine attempt to preserve unity and integrity of India, as it was basically an attempt to accommodate the grievances of the minority Muslims and to allay their fears and apprehension. So, what cabinet mission plans concerns were that if a kind of bifurcation happened to India, the minority Muslims would be facing kind of dire of the other people living in this particular country. So they do not wanted to disintegrate the country, but they wanted to unite it with small things to be given to the minorities.